I don't know about you, but when I read a Bible text, I kind of look for words or phrases that kind of jump out on me. Phrases that do not seem to kind of fit into the situation. That just don't seem right. And for me, that phrase is found in verse 35 of our text. Jesus has cast out demons from this crazy man who has lived in what we in the present day might call the pinnacle of insanity, but our text calls demon possession. He is naked, lives among tombs, has the strength to break out of shackles. Here's a guy you do not want to meet in a dark alley. In doing this, Jesus has allowed the demons to enter pigs, a herd of pigs. And the pigs proceed to run headlong into the sea and perish. The people living in the city and countryside are told of this, and they go to see what happened. They see the formerly demon-possessed man sitting with Jesus and in his right mind. Verse 35 gives their reaction. They were afraid. Why would they be afraid? Even if the loss of the pigs meant some kind of financial loss for some people, why would they be afraid? Why wouldn't they be happy for this man who was demon-possessed and is now free? And this miracle narrative is different in another way also. When you think about it, just about all the miracles that Jesus performs, two things happen. The person that is healed goes home to be with his family. When the report of that healing goes out to the city and country, the crowds gather around Jesus and they want to be with him. Here, the exact opposite happens. The crowd asks Jesus to please get out of town. The now healed crazy man begs Jesus to be allowed to stay with him. And I wonder, who are the crazy people here? After reading this text, I kind of struggled with how to preach a sermon on it. And I guess the reason for that is that, demon possession is not a 21st century phenomenon. We just don't think in those terms. And if we try to make sense of the gospel text for our day, we wouldn't talk about demon possession. If you met someone who's acting strangely, erratically, is talking incoherently, dressed in clothes that look like they're 10 years old and never been washed, we might say they are out of their mind, or they're going through some sort of psychotic episode, or they've been taking drugs, or they're just insane. We would not say they're demon-possessed. When psychiatrists treat a patient, they work kind of on the assumption that their psychological condition arises from within them, from different factors. Maybe childhood experiences, maybe the shock of battle, or maybe a problem with their hormones, maybe an overdose of drugs, maybe a combination of those kinds of circumstances. No psychiatrist in their right mind would assume that their patient was being possessed by some kind of malevolent being which is now in control of them. I suppose we try to make sense of this gospel in a way by avoiding the word demon and focusing on the word possession. A person being possessed or addicted to something or by something we can put a name on, to drugs, or something or someone, something that distorts their life and makes them go in a path that they can't even control. And the cure then is to first determine the cause, makes sense, then work with the person to overcome their obsession or addiction or possession, or however we want to put it. That makes sense, really. But here in this gospel text, demon possession is something that comes from outside. and controls that possessed man's life. He cannot overcome it, nor is he able to control it. And it is possible that he is not truly aware of his bondage. It's interesting, one of the first steps in the program that Alcoholics Anonymous has in their treatment of someone with an alcohol addiction is to convince them that they cannot control their addiction, that they are in bondage. And I suppose unless anyone has lived in that kind of bondage, we find it impossible to really understand what they are going through. And our fancy modern analyses are just for us a more reasonable and acceptable way of saying he has a demon. And you know, I would say that both this demon-possessed man and the people of the city and the country are in bondage. Sadly, only the demon-possessed man is healed and is free. The others kick Jesus out. Do they see in Jesus a threat? Another power? We don't know. I struggle to find something in modern life that might fit that situation. And for what it's worth, here's my effort. When I was on seminary internship in Seattle, I got to know the parents of one of my confirmation students. And they spent much time and money involved in the Vietnam War protests of that day. Some of you may remember those. And they did so much. They went to protest rallies. They did everything they could to make this a success, to stop the Vietnam War. It affected their family finances. It affected their family life. And I wondered, what happens when the war ends? This thing, this cause that had kind of given meaning to their life, what happens when that ends? You can guess. They found another cause. And I wonder if it isn't the demon of the cause which holds so many in bondage today, and the causes are legion. I mean, turn on the TV, and you are inundated by images of crowds and protest rallies crying out against some sort of injustice. And the causes are good causes. You know? The environment, Occupy Wall Street, social justice, women's rights, wiping out child slavery, ending capital punishment, elect Trump, elect Hillary. These are not evil causes, but their bondage is subtle. It is the assumption that the evils in this world are in our control. That if we work hard enough, sacrifice enough, learn enough, or spend enough money, we will usher in a new age of world peace and prosperity. It is a subtle and insidious bondage. I don't know, some of you may remember the unbridled optimism in the year 2000. We were entering into a new century. The internet held promise to bring us all together. The economy was going great. The world was at peace. What could go wrong? Here in 2016, we know what could go wrong. Now, do not get me wrong. It's not that I'm advocating that as Christians we should avoid any attempt to solve the evils of this world, or that we should kind of hide in our own shell and hope for the best. One of my favorite theologians, and one of the best theologians, I guess, of the 20th century, C.S. Lewis, who you may know from his children's stories and others, and other writings, wrote an essay during World War II called Why I Am Not a Pacifist. And it's an interesting essay, and one of the questions he talks about is when people say, even if there is only a faint hope of abolishing war by pacifism, could we find any other hope? And he replies in a very fascinating way, which is typical of C.S. Lewis. He says that that reply makes an assumption. And the assumption is this: the great permanent miseries in human life must be curable, if only we can find the right cure. But then this search for the right cure often ends up in a kind of philosophy or ism. And for C.S. Lewis's day, that was communism, which promised to solve the world's evils. In our day, we probably have many. I'll mention two. We have the political ideologies of conservatism and liberalism, all of each which has their own view of what the world needs and its own guaranteed solution. C.S. Lewis makes a suggestion. He says the best results really are obtained by people who work quietly at limited objectives. And for him, some of those objectives was the abolition of the slave trade and some other things. And on the other hand, he says, they're not helped by those who think they can achieve universal justice or health or peace on earth. And the art of Christian life is in tackling each immediate evil as well as we can, aware that only God is in control, only God controls the future. The demon or burden of saving the universe is taken off our backs. In this gospel account of the healing of the demon-possessed man, I get the feeling that Luke is hinting that you and I need to follow the lead of that demon-possessed but now free man. In words kind of reminiscent of our communion liturgy, when after we take communion we sing, "Thank the Lord," and sing his praise, tell everyone what he has done. Jesus tells this man, return to your home and declare how much God has done for you. Today Jesus tells us, you are free. Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you. Amen.